Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Crazy Karen will probably stop after she kills someone. Maybe. I doubt the kids were too confused. It's very likely not the first time they've seen their mom go nuts on a stranger. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. A crazy Karen followed me home. So this happened a few years ago. For some context, I was a 22-year-old female, though I do have a baby face and could pass for 16 or 17 years old easily. I had a Yamaha motorbike, 125cc, meaning it could easily go 70 miles an hour. My dad raced motocross, and I've been riding bikes my whole life. He taught me all the road rules and safety do's and don'ts. So one day I'm riding to visit my uncle who lived in the middle of nowhere, and the roads there are all 50 miles per hour and have extreme bends, and on each side of the road is a massive ditch. I'm going 55 miles per hour, only slowing when the bends are bad. Cue a Karen with 3 kids, all under 10, in the back tailing me. And I mean tailing, within a couple of feet to the back of my bike. I speed up to ignore her, and she pulls her minivan to the side of me and tries to force me to the edge of the road, which is just a ditch. I slow and let her pass, my heart racing as I barely kept my bike upright. You would think this is where it ends, right? Nope. I was maybe a few miles from my uncle's at this point and have to go through a village high street to get there. As I'm going through, I see Karen, her minivan is blocking the street, and she stood with her door open in the road, her arms out as she tries to stop me and force me off the road. I just managed to get past her as onlookers were yelling at her to stop. I go the last few streets to my uncle's and stop down the road, parking my bike and taking my helmet off. With a screech, Karen's minivan pulls up in front of me, and she runs for me screaming, "What the F is wrong with you? Don't you know how to drive?" When I just stare at her, she screeches again. "Only cars can drive in the road. Bikes have to drive on the side or pavement." Yeah, nope, that's so wrong. "That thing can't go fast enough to be in the road. You should have pulled over when I told you to. I'm going to report you." At this point, I see my uncle coming outside, his eyes shifting between the Karen and me. Now, something to know about my uncle and me is that we are crazy close, both pranksters. Also, my uncle is 6 foot and not a small man. So without skipping a beat, I put on a fake sad face and run to him screaming in a terrified voice, "Daddy, this lady tried to grab me off my bike and followed me home." Where I live, you can get a provisional license before 18, meaning I could have been a minor. Trying not to laugh, my uncle puffs up his chest and yells out at the woman who had run after me and was now behind us, "You followed my little girl home? She's a child." Karen's face went white, and I swear she looked like she'd crapped herself as she tried to defend herself, only for my uncle to interrupt her. As loud as he could, making sure every nosy neighbor had come out, he screams, "What are you, some kind of pervert? I'm calling the police." Without blinking, Karen runs for her car, speeding off with 3 confused-looking kids in the back. As soon as Karen was out of view, I told my uncle what happened, and we both laughed as we went inside to see my aunt laughing as she'd watched the whole thing through the window. And our second story. Don't be rude to gas station attendants. We control your gas. For several years, I worked at a gas station while finishing school. I honestly loved my job, but we got quite a few jerks and that would yell at us about gas prices, as if we could control it. Anyway, my manager had this awesome way of getting back at the especially rude ones. At the register, we had a button that could stop the gas flow at any specific pump. It was always funny to see the look of confusion on their faces before starting in again. We always made sure to turn it back on before they came in, though. One day, while training a new guy, this especially annoyed customer came in, literally yelling at me about the price of gas. I tried to be as polite as possible, but he kept at it, even going as far as to call me a B. "Sir, I'm awfully sorry, but as you can see, I only control of the register. How do you expect a 20-year-old part-time worker to be in charge of the nation's gas prices?" Now he was yelling in my face, leaning over the counter, "I'm a cop. I protect your lazy butt all day, and you can't even give me a discount?" If he really was a cop, I'll never know because he wasn't wearing a uniform. "I'm sorry, sir, but you know I can't do that." "Well, screw you too, B." He tried to throw his $40 at me, but it just fluttered down onto the floor. The new hire was clearly very distraught. I put his money in the drawer and said, "So today you're going to learn how to deal with a-holes like that." I motioned him to my register and watched the screen, waiting until he'd pumped about 2 gallons. I stopped the pump and pointed out the window to where the man was pumping. This time, I'm going to make him work harder for his gas. We watched while he jiggled the handle before giving up and stomping back into the store. Right before he came through the door, I restarted his pump. "My pump isn't working. Why the hell isn't my pump working?" Boy, was he irritated. I put on my best innocent face and asked, "Have you tried squeezing the handle?" "Check and make sure you put in the right amount, moron." Sheesh, how rude. "Yep, 40 on pump 5, you should be good." I smiled sweetly at him as he rolled his eyes and walked back out to the pump. I waited another few gallons and stopped it again. This is hilarious and all, but won't we get fired?" New hire asked nervously. "No, manager taught me this trick. Jerk guy was on his way in again, so I quickly started the pump. Seriously, this is ridiculous. The pump isn't working." "All right, sir, how about I come out and help you pump your gas since you seem to be having trouble?" "Yeah, like you'll be able to if I can't. Go right ahead." He scoffed at me, so I followed him out to his car. Of course, it was working fine for me, so I gave him a weird look as if to suggest he was crazy. I finished pumping, saying, "That's weird, no issues." "Maybe you really just don't know how to pump gas." I smiled and walked away as he got into his car, mumbling under his breath. And our next story. After working in retail for 5 years, you'd think that people's actions wouldn't surprise me anymore. Around 10 years ago, I worked at a convenience store within the business school for my university. I was working closing shift. We close at 8, but it usually isn't very crowded after 6:30, although sometimes we get an odd rush here and there depending on what classes, tests, events are going on in the building. So at 6:45, some kind of exam must have ended because I had a 15-person rush. Even though I was working by myself, it's not a big deal because I've handled this kind of thing before. So I go through and ring up the line as normal when I get to a group of 5 guys in line. They're all talking really loud about, "I can't believe I failed that exam, blah, blah, blah." So I ring up the first 4 guys, all using their IDs to pay. It'll get charged to your university bill. The last guy puts a cookie, which cost $1.50, and 2 bags of chips, which cost 50 cents each, up on the counter. So I ring through the chips and manually enter the cookie and total out the transaction and look up to say, "That'll be $2.50. But by this time, the jerk had already taken his stuff and started walking away talking to his friends. At this point, I'm freaking out. I start yelling at him, "Sir, you still owe me $2.50. But he and his friends keep walking away. I yell this about 3 more times and then finally scream, "Sir, you forgot to pay!" This time, one of his friends hears me, turns around, and flips me off. I could have chased him down, but since I was working alone, I couldn't leave the counter unattended, and I still had about 7 people to ring through. What really pisses me off, though, is that the cookies are made by local people with disabilities. So every time we sell one, we send part of the profits back to the foundation. So basically, he'd taken money from them. It's days like this that I hate working retail. My biggest issue with this story is that not one of those people in line tried to stop him as you were yelling after him. And our last story. HOA Karen from Satan's butt. Why did the HOA become the world's worst comedy club? Because they have a strict policy against any laughs, and their punchlines are just a list of rule violations. I'm a farmer. I love this job, raising cattle and crops and riding my ATV or going fishing in my spare time. And my life would have been perfect, and it was until neighbor Karen and the huge, infernal HOA came along. My neighbors and the Homeowners Association, HOA, are just terrible. I never thought people could be so stupid, greedy, petty, and narcissistic all at once. My father owned about 500 hectares of land, and in his old age, he left me 100 hectares while selling the rest to retire comfortably. My sister received a third of the money, and I got the 100 hectares. I must have done something really bad in a past life because the land my father sold became the most hellish HOA in the world. The houses hadn't even been built yet, but I started receiving letters demanding that I join the HOA. The representatives from the HOA started showing up at my doorstep, and the breaking point was when they attempted to tow away my old Mustang from my own property because it didn't fit the image they wanted for the wealthy neighborhood. Karen didn't realize I was part owner of the towing company they hired. So I purposely started looking for parking violations to have their cars towed. No one messes with a farmer's morning porridge. LOL. At the end of my field, there's a small patch of bushes that I rarely visit. Due to the hills and trees, it's not visible from the second floor of my house. Imagine my surprise when I rode my quad bike to the edge of the field and saw a dirt road running through my land. And guess where it led? That's right, straight from the HOA. Within an hour, I drove my tractor and plowed 3 deep lines across that road. The following week, I received a letter from the HOA's lawyer. They were planning to sue me for damaging their property, which happened to be on my land. No matter how much I disliked it, I had to hire my own lawyer. I have all the documents for the land, clearly marking the boundaries of my property, several witnesses who saw them constructing the road, and a counterclaim against the HOA for material and emotional damages. My lawyer believes we have a solid case, and it's just a matter of time before we win. So I decided to share this story in advance. I hate that damn HOA from the depths of Satan's lair. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.